We're going to get going. Number one, good evening, and thank you for showing up for the first LV3C City Council sitting council member question and answer forum. Most of us have attended others where there's so many people, and we thought this might be a nice way to get to know one-on-one two of the current council people obviously running for re-election. So thank you for being here. My name is Rick Bowen. I'm the chair of the Hepburn Coalition of Concerned Citizens, aka LV3C. The intent of this forum is to have residents ask questions directly to two current council members that are running for re-election under the new district voting guidelines. I do have some written questions that were pre-submitted, but hope that the audience will address the issues that are important to them. If you attended the city candidate forum, you saw the candidates answer just a few select questions. Really, I don't think giving people a feel for the candidates. So tonight we hope to have every question addressed. First thing I'd like to see is hands from LV3C members. Thank you for being here, and a first-time attendee to any of these kinds of events. Good. More people in the room. I'd like to thank our current elected mayor, Tim Hepburn, and Mayor Pro Tem Councilperson Muir Davis for agreeing to meet and address the residents' issues. I also want to thank the moderators at the LV3C, Pam Berry, Kelly, Danita Beauchamp, and Gina Henry. Also members like Joe Wett, Kathy Newman, Anna Anderson, Lily Brainerd, Susan Carson, and many others, because it really does take a fair amount of planning to put these things together. Just so you'll know, bathrooms are outside. They're unlocked, so you don't have to worry about that. And I wanted to ask, is the softball game going on? Did we make
the softball game?
I think it started.
It should be over.
Yeah.
It'll last for 6 or 7 innings, I think the last one was. I haven't heard.
But they made.
Yes, they lost 3-2.
Oh. Hey, second round. Stayed, not a bad deal.
I should have been there.
Oh, wait, is that second or third? Second round.
Second round.
Yeah.
Second round state, that's awesome.
Yeah, compared to that.
Well, first time since 1979 or like before that, so Benita's rocking, just rocking.
We had a great sports year this year. Just so you'll know, each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. And we will try to stick to the time frames. As I said, the intent of this meeting to have residents ask candidates questions or address issues that are important to them. We have question cards for your use. I think you saw some at the sign-in station. I have the ones that are filled out. If you want one, just raise your hand. We'll get you another one. If we choose the questions, which we hope we do, all of them, I'd like you to raise your hand, and I'd like you to read them to the candidates. Please state the question versus a long statement in order to conserve time. We can direct your question to either an individual candidate or both. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer your question. At the end of the question, I'll ask you if you felt they answered your question. If not, we'll ask them to give a 1-minute clarification. Sometimes the answers are not always answers.
30 seconds for rebuttal or no? I'm sorry.
1 minute for clarification. We can adjust as we go on.
Thank you.
Based on the amount of the audience questions, we do have some pre-submitted questions that I have that I may ask. Again, same time frame, 2-minute answers. At the end of the questions, hopefully by 8, which I think we'll make that easily, we'll allow both candidates another 3 minutes for closing remarks. Remember, this is our first time we've done a Q&A of this type, so bear with us. hope to do more of these in the future. Be interesting to get the candidates that are elected to come in a small forum like this, two max, to address citizens' questions after they're elected.
You did that before.
Try to do more of them in the
Yeah,
future.
no, I think that's great, absolutely.
We hope you enjoy the smaller format. I encourage you to stay informed, and by all means, vote by Tuesday. The future of Laverne's the state. Regards, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask a poll of the audience. Is it better with the mic or without the mic? Because there's an echo.
So I can do either one.
It's a small enough room, I see.
I don't think you're.
I don't think these two need lights.
Yeah.
Without,
All right.
I think Davis and Hepburn don't need lights.
if it's mine, I just drop it.
That's not bad.
So if we can't hear you in the back, I will tell you.
Well,
Right.
Rich will tell us if
Yeah,
it's kicking on there, right?
Yeah, does it make any difference?
Okay, so without further ado, we will have Mayor Hepburn do his 3-minute introduction. Pam does have some nice little minute reminders, time frame, and then Mr. Hepburn.
We do this at council meetings. Well, great. If you don't know who I am, I'm Tim Hepburn, longtime resident. Not as long as Muir, obviously, but as the Davises or the Hanwalds or the Johnsons or the, all those families, but then the Fricks. But been on the council since 2015. Donna was on with me at the time, Donna Redmond. Also was 5 years, and then in 2020 became mayor. And we had a pandemic in 2020 on April 6th when we took office. Basically the whole world shut down. So I think we as a council and as a city have done an extremely good job. Our residents have done a great job. We kept our businesses open. We communicated with our county supervisors to find out what we could open, what we couldn't open, and steadfastly worked with them. Robin Carter also is mine. Great to serve with her also. But it's been an interesting 2 years. We have kept our city. Financially, we're probably healthier than we've ever been because residents stayed in place. They shopped locally. They bought the gas. They bought the groceries. We had a lot of issues come up during the pandemic. One of them, the Affable paid the prison, and we as a community and our council stuck together and made sure that didn't happen. Fought with our county supervisors and the county of Los Angeles to make that happen. So I'm going to make it short, guys. I think we've done a fantastic job. The residents have done a fantastic job. I am running in Council District 4, which is a little different. I'm not real happy with the 5 district, but we'll work through that. We've got an election, we've got 5 districts to do, and we're going to do that, and that's how the voters are going to vote. And as Mr. Bowen said, it's so important to vote. The voter turnout right now is extremely low, and I think people are very apprehensive putting their ballots in a box and not having them, follow. We do have one voting center in San Dimas that is currently open for voting and also for drop-off, and there's 3 centers in Laverne that have, you can drop off coming Saturday. All 4 of these locations, I think it's the Episcopal, I think it's the Veterans Hall, San Dimas Community, and there's one other here that you can actually vote in person on Saturday till the 7th. So the most important thing is to vote. We need a good turnout. No matter who they vote for, it's so important. It's our God-given right in the United States of America and our citizens to vote. I think we need to make sure we do that. But raised all my kids here in Laverne, as you all know, teachers, mentors, college for my daughter Kristen. We had the Redmonds were wonderful at the University of Laverne. She got her teaching credentials. My kids all went to universities, and I love this community. I always have. But I do say that our community really hung together in this pandemic. They did a fantastic job of holding our community together and making it even a better place than it was before. But there you go. Can you hear me, Rich?
Yep, you did good.
Excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome. My name is Muir Davis, and I'm currently on council, Mayor Pro Tem this year, running for a re-election for District 1. My opponent is Steve Johnson, who has been a lifelong friend. We grew grew up together. From kindergarten through Benita High School. Steve went on to ULB. I went to UC Berkeley to study mathematics. And came home because Laverne is a very special place. Left again then when I got married. Went to Northern California because I love it up there too. Decided to come back home. And so here I am. It took me about 9 years to get back onto the street I grew up on. So now I live back on 2nd Street, across the street from where I grew up. And it's still a magical street, it's still a magical city. And the more I traveled, the more I learned and found out how special Laverne is and how unlike other communities Laverne is. As I used to tell classmates up at Berkeley, I was from a small town on the east edge of LA County, and they said there's no place like that. And I would bring them down here and they would say, wow, this is crazy. I said, yes, there's no place like my home. And it's truly amazing. And so I want to thank you all for being here tonight, for listening, for asking questions. I'm very proud to have been on council for the past 5 years with Robin, with Don Kendrick, with Charlie Rosales, with Tim, and most recently with Rick Crosby and with Wendy Lau. I think we've done a lot of great things, and I'm very proud of the record that we have. I'll say I, because I want to make sure that you know that I take responsibility for everything that we've done. But everything that we've done as a team. And that's really the important piece about how we govern locally, is working together, driving consensus, collaborating with each other, making sure that we're sharing information and sharing thoughts about why we're making decisions that we're making. Because the decisions that we're making are for 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. They're not the day-to-day decisions. The day-to-day decisions are managed by the city manager and all of our department staff. We're the body that really needs to look forward and say, what's this going to look like in 40 to 50 years? I agree with Tim. I'm going to call you Tim because we're respectful, but we're also
You should
friends.
call each other.
Yes.
You're a Tim.
Especially when there's a bottle of beer. It's one of those things. So, I didn't want to go districts either, but once I did the research and found out that we couldn't defend being pushed into districts, I thought it's better to walk forward into districts rather than being shoved into districts. And I'm not sure exactly how it worked out, but we ended up walking into districting, whereas San Dimas and our school district, Benita Unified, were both pushed into districts. So I'm actually proud of where we came out, even though it was a decision that at first I didn't want to have. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, anybody want to volunteer to be first? Probably not, right? Then I will take one that was submitted by Sherry Best and let her read it.
So just like announcements at city council, I guess, all right?
We do learn from something.
And I'm asking this question because it came up today. I heard that persons in the Casitas Mobile Home Park have received a written notice that they will need to vacate in 5 years. That surprised me. My question is to both of you, will you support maintaining all mobile home parks in the face of increasing development?
You want to alternate who goes first?
I think personally, you and I, that's the same question, same answer, yes, absolutely.
Right. So the answer to that is yes. And a few years ago, as a council, we established more ordinances to protect the residents in mobile home parks from the owners of the land being able to just push everybody out and redevelop the land. So we made it harder for them. We essentially created an ordinance that required the landowners to pay, if they really want to follow through with it, it's their land, but they would have to pay to relocate each and every member in the park. So the threat of vacation or vacating their home is an overstatement from my understanding of our municipal code. They would have to say, we're going to move you into another home if they really want to empty the park and then try to find a way to develop it. However, our parks are also zoned mobile home park. And we don't have, or I don't have any intention of changing that zoning at all. So whatever the landowner's doing and or the management firm of the park are doing right now is very sad to those residents. And and I'm with the residents. I don't want them to feel as though they're being run over by a steamroller.
This is a follow-up question to both of you.
Why don't we, let's do the first one then.
Okay, Tim's gonna answer first.
Well, I'm gonna mirror what Muir said exactly. We did institute, Robin was part of it. We made sure that there was some teeth in the fact that we have so many mobile home communities, we need to protect those residents. And Muir and I are having to work on we're the liaisons for the mobile home community, so we're in contact with the management at all times. J.R. Reynolds, who is our lead person, and then also our park managers and some of the other parks. But this happened a number of years ago when Casitas was doing some pretty bad stuff and putting out bad negative information to the residents, and we basically jumped on it and kind of mirrored our contract that they have to basically follow as far as vacating any of the properties. And it's really ironic because I just received an email. I communicate with mobile home parks as far as information from Grace Napolitano and the COVID stuff or any news that's going on. I push it out to all the parks. Well, I got an email, I forgot to tell you, 2 weeks ago, an email from Las Casitas says, please no further information to our residents and to the park staff. So, and that's funny because they have been absolutely horrific over the last number of years. And so, in what Muir said is correct. You have to rezone, not under our watch. I don't think under anybody's watch. We need to protect our residents. They're on a fixed income. They're in a tiny spot. They are homes, and we must protect them. So the city will go to bat, I can guarantee you.
That's
And
good. They're very fearful.
yeah, well, and it's the stuff they're doing is scaring people that sometimes don't understand all the facts. As a city, we'll make sure we communicate with them and let them know the rights that they have.
Thank you.
Sherry, that answer your question?
It does.
Okay, good. Yes, sir. Your name
John Bass.
and did you fill out a card by any chance?
No, it's a follow-up on that question.
Okay.
Because as I understand it, the city council would have to vote to essentially evict in terms of changing the zoning on that land. And so both of you are saying that you would not vote to change the zoning on that land.
That's
Because
correct.
it's only by doing that would that even be a viable option.
Well,
So it's twofold. One is that, but if you want to answer it first, Tim, you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it's twofold. So if the landowner who's not Casitas, or if Casitas is trying to do whatever, act as the landowner's agent and evict people right now, they can't evict them, they would have to relocate them. That's even before we get to rezoning the mobile home park. And the reason the landowner might want to evict everybody is to say, here I have empty land, I want to rezone this so we can make it prosperous and support the city and blah, blah, blah. And that would require a zoning change by the council. And right now, I don't know anybody on council, and I know I'm not one, and I know Tim's not one either, that wants to change the zoning for that mobile home park. That mobile home park is zoned mobile home park, and even if the owners come to us and say, you need to change this, we'll say, no, we don't. We're gonna leave it the same. If you want out of that land, you're welcome to get out of it. You can sell it to somebody else. And we as a city bought the Sierra or the Laverne mobile home park up off of Moreno. I would be willing to have council seriously look at buying another, because that's an important support housing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
In other words, we're evicting these
Right.
these people who live in this community and be part of the community forever. And also people come in, I mean, I moved to another out here.
I'm just gonna mirror what Muir said. There will be, anything that happens to those residents will be through the city's hands and our hands. And when it comes to rezoning, it's not gonna happen. You know, if it goes the full length, where we get people, we get them another housing, things like that, which is the most important thing. And then if they wanna go to rezone, I mean, let's face it, it's all about housing and it's all about money, but the point is that was designed as a mobile home community, it was to stay as a mobile home community. So I don't think you're gonna get any council member that's gonna attack that. With so many mobile home communities and with great residents we have in all of our 7 parks, 7 mobile home communities, it's extremely important to keep them like they are. So.
I've got a question. Can I ask it?
Follow up to this?
Yes,
Okay.
so Sherry Best said that this is concerning Casitas, mobile home parks. I'm a RSVP, a retired senior volunteer police officer. We toured check out the mobile home parks. Robert Carter and I are partners in this, but I never heard of casitas. Where is that at?
They're right around my house.
It's on
Oh, left side or right side? Just
It's
going-
on
It's
the,
right
it's
across
on the west side.
West side.
It's across from Twin Oaks.
Okay, got it.
It's right across from Twin Oaks.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
Everybody does know where it's actually at.
Can I also follow up with that same issue?
Yes, sir.
You're talking a lot of
Name,
things,
please.
Bob Carter,
Thank
you're
you.
talking a lot of issues downstream. But there are people that are there now trying to sell their mobile home and are deeply discounting it. Have every of the residents been notified of what the powers they have? Because what's happening is, you know, mom gets sick or mom dies, dad wants to move out, he can't sell it. It's supposed to be worth, whatever, say $150,000, 140, 130, 120. People come in, make an offer and say, in 5 years you have to leave. According to this, I have to notify you. That's what my real estate agent says. What are we doing as a city to give them the information and say, wait a minute, that can't happen in 5 years. Here's the requirements to go with it. So if a new owner comes in, it's like, well, wait a minute, that can't happen without all these other issues. So what is the city or Jared Reynolds, what are we doing to inform our residents that have these issues? Because they are running into low costs.
I think we're just gonna, basically, that we'll let JR know, because this is kind of rearing its head again, because they did it about 3 or 4 years ago. About 3 or 4 years ago they did it, we did the same thing. That's when we instituted our policy that, you know, here's the criteria that if you're gonna even think of doing this, is what you have to do with the residents. But they were sending out tactics, they were sending out letters and scaring homeowners, as Robin would attest to, and it's like, it's uncalled for. So we'll make sure that JR knows that these things are starting to rear its ugly head again, because this, we knew it was just lying for a bit, but now it's starting to come to fruition.
Then,
So let me also answer Bob's question. So a couple years ago, a friend of mine, Peggy Canova's mom passed away, and she was trying to sell her place, and every time the park agent would tell them they had to notify them, and so Peggy came in, and I talked her through and said, no, you don't have to do that, what they're saying isn't truthful, and so she was able to get a reasonably satisfactory sale price for their coach. A piece that would be helpful is because, as Tim was saying, and I didn't know this, and so I'm glad to hear it now, that they were telling him to stop sending information to our residents. So we need to get, if we can get a copy of that letter, then we can instruct staff to send a cease and desist letter to stop behaving that way, so that they can't continue to intimidate their residents. And furthermore, I'll look to Bob and you to say, how can we help energize RSVP to be continually dialoguing with residents and let them know that we do care about them. We do want to make sure that their way of living and their lifestyle is supported, and that if they have information that they can get to you, then that can be directed back to us. So as a community, we need to find ways to work together, because I didn't know that Casitas was trying to thwart our ability to communicate with residents, and that is extremely concerning.
Well, and also I think the biggest thing too is the value. What you're talking about, Robert, is the value. And right now the values are high. These places, mobile home communities, they're hot properties. You know, rent's a decent rent. The space you can buy the actual home, you're doing well. And that's what happened before, as Muir said. We remember we had to do that, and Robin was there too. And so we'll have to make sure we get with JR immediately and find out what the heck's going on, because they're doing the same thing they did before.
I have one more. Joe?
The question's very simple.
Name?
Joe Gallo. So the ordinance itself does not provide the adequate protections that I think are necessary. It only stipulates that fair market value be provided. That is an insufficient protection for them. I think there needs to be more teeth in the ordinance. Do you support going back and putting more teeth in the ordinance where it, at minimum, if any development does occur down the road, that it guarantees relocation, not in cost of doing so, but in the same value of a home that they live in today? Those people cannot afford any costs associated with moving, nor should they. This is Laverne, so will you protect them with that?
We'll have to look at what the contract says right now and have the attorney look at it, but yes, if we could put teeth into it, yes, of course. Yes, protect our residents.
Yes, sir. Let's move on. Yes.
I would like to see this issue put it into as a standing piece on the city council agenda, not every time, but that it's actually being followed up on, because we're talking about thousands and thousands of people in the city who live in these parks. And it's something that is very personal to them. And so it's something that should be, a standing, here's an update, this is what's happening on the city council agenda.
So, in response to that, so as Tim was saying earlier, that we have a mobile home park liaison committee that has 2 council members. So we have broken certain things down in the committee so that we can engage in activities, engage with our residents on specific issues like mobile home parks in a way that doesn't violate the Brown Act and allows us to take active engagement. For 6 out of the 7 parks, each park has their own little piece. For one park, Copacabana, when I first joined council, they were concerned because some of their streetlights were out. Having worked at Edison, I said, well, let me look into that. It took 3 years to figure out who owned the streetlights, and another year after that, and it's comical, but it's also really crazy that you wouldn't know who owns a streetlight. But it took 3 years to find out who actually owned the streetlights and how to get them reconnected so they could be on at night. We've got them on now, but fortunately the residents were patient with us. With regard to casitas, that has been the only area where that at least I know of, that has been where residents have felt as though they've been between a rock and a hard place or being steamrolled. So that is an area that we're concerned about. It doesn't transfer to Twin Oaks or to the Fountains or to the others. So I don't know that we go so far as to say that we want to bring it up to everybody. Okay, I guess
I'll finish your thought.
Okay.
Yes, we can put it on an agendized item, we can do anything on an agendized item. We need to check out and find out what's going on first before we agendize, because as Mr. Davis said, we have multiple parks that we deal with. And if there's an issue, we deal with it immediately.
Right.
And so it's very concerning to us. I'll make sure our city manager knows, and we'll find out what's going on, because it sounds like it's ramping up again. And I would appreciate, like Muir said, please let us know what's happening, because we don't hear that all the time, and you guys are like boots on the ground. You're always in those neighborhoods, you're always talking to people, and they talk, so we want to make sure we nip it in the bud. So,
I did want to address Joe's
We
question.
got to move on.
Okay.
It's been, I think we want to get everybody's answers, but we're spending 45 minutes on this. I just want to make one quick comment about the agenda item. It is my understanding that the rules still are that you can ask anything to be put on the agenda. You have to submit it to one of the council people, or all of them, and one of them have to say, yes, I will put it on the agenda. I've done that through the years, and I find it interesting that things come up at a meeting like this, but any day, any person, if I got one of those, that's the first thing I would do. So I think that's one thing, notifying our residents. You're supposed to be in control. When you look at the organizational chart, it's residents first. So I would encourage you to call in, get it on the agenda. Don't wait for one of them independently. Put your name to it and say, I want to have this as a discussion. Because again, it's a discussion. It's not a vote. It's not anything else. No dialogue.
Thank you, that was helpful.
I almost hate to follow this one up with that, but it kind of ties in. Here's a pre-submitted question. With the traffic increase in housing developments in the Fruit Amherst neighborhood, 90, and I'm just reading the question, 92 units will equate to almost 200 cars. Currently, if you're traveling east on Foothill, want to go north on Fruit, it takes 3 to 4 signals to make the left turn. Boy, don't we all know that. With the influx of the additional homeowners, what will you propose to mitigate the traffic in and around the surrounding areas? So that's one question. And then a follow-up was, what traffic solutions and mitigation are being proposed to handle the traffic that will be generated by the units on the south side over on Arrow Highway? And personally, I would add, how about Sierra Laverne? That would be insanity. So
That's like, we could spend the rest of the night on just Sierra Leone, please.
So the question about traffic studies and traffic control, those are the day-to-day management issues that I was talking about earlier in my introduction. So we have Sean Igo, who's the Director of Public Works, and we've asked them, after these 2 projects have been built, to have a traffic study and find out what, if anything, we need to do. I do and am interested in traffic. It's been a passion of mine ever since Mr. Bailey in 6th grade had us do traffic studies of D Street and 8th and watch the cars that were going southbound over the irrigation trench, and those that were going north, and those that were turning left off of 8th and right off of 8th, and those that were turning east on 8th. So we did those, and that struck a chord in me, and so forever I've been interested in traffic. The projects that are along Arrow are really designed to afford the owners there or the people who live there opportunities to use mass transit, of which we have the Metro coming in and we have the MetroLink trains. So there are going to be choices for people that don't necessarily want to use cars. Because one of the things that we're learning is that millennials, my daughter being not a millennial but a Gen Z or anyway, whatever they are, she's not as passionate about driving as I was, which just astounds me. But there are a lot of people out there that would rather use something other than their own car, because I guess they've been indoctrinated with the fact that cars move from bumper to bumper very slow along the road, and they don't like that. I can't blame them, which is one reason why we're trying to get more alternatives to vehicular traffic in Laverne. Walking, riding your bicycle, skating, things like that, to be able to move around in certain areas. So these are important issues, and we've addressed them in some extent by asking our Director of Public Works and others to do studies after these projects are developed to respond to those appropriately for traffic. Thank you.
Okay, before Tim answers, I want to reread the question because I think that's, in this case, pardon me, but I don't think he answered the question. With the significant increase in housing on a Fruit and Amherst, and I'll cut to the chase, what do you propose to mitigate the traffic in this and surrounding areas?
I said a traffic study by our director.
But we've already approved the homes, so isn't that kind of putting the cart after the horse?
No.
Okay. Tim?
I know that the Amherst is kind of sensitive because of the fact that there's a lot of traffic there, and there's going to be more. We just opened up Amazon Fresh, so that's a little bit of traffic, a little different situation there. But as Muir stated, our Public Works Director is well aware, and as Muir Davis and myself are on the Active Transportation Committee, I know that the residents on Amherst were talking about opening up Amherst, if that's necessary because of the track on the other side. What's the name of it?
Voted.
Bowman and Williams.
Williams.
Bowden
On
and
Williams.
Williams.
So there's going to be some issues, and it's going to change. Whether we need more traffic signals, whether we need speed control, whether we need to open Amherst. That's up to our Public Works Director, but it's also up to our transportation contractor that goes in and does the studies. And I know studies were supposedly flawed and this and that, but they are what they are right now. We get the tracks built, and then we're going to really seriously have to sit down and figure out what's going on. That's going to be our Public Works, our transportation people. As far as the White Avenue and, as Muir said, the L line, Gold line, or whatever the heck it's called now, the G line, our station there is going to be active transportation. So hopefully, and with the price of cars and gas right now, people are going to go to electric and go on foot and go on bikes. And so that's what the whole deal is. Active transportation, mobility, we have these units there that people can jump on and off the train, hopefully go to work, they can ride around with their plane. We're going to have a bridge going over to the Fairplex, so there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. And that's part of the whole plan. So we're going to have to see it as it goes. It's going to have to morph, and we're going to change it as we go along.
Yes, ma'am. Name?
Anita Beauchamp. I live exactly in that neighborhood,
There we go.
Fruit and Amherst. The question I'm asking is, you fall back on the traffic studies that were conducted, but the traffic studies that were conducted clearly showed that the letter grade of the traffic was already an F. And as we all know, F is a failing grade. And they still chose to approve these projects to go into these neighborhoods. As you mentioned, Amazon Fresh is going to be, increased traffic there. And you've got the 50 units from the Kulisik property. Those two driveways almost face each other. turning left in and out of those shopping centers and on the Fruit with the oncoming traffic from Foothill, plus the units on Amherst near Williams. I mean, we're talking about 200 additional cars in there. So having a traffic study done isn't an answer as to how it's going to be handled. Putting another signal, I mean, that would be the 8th signal within 500 yards from the freeway to the high school. There has to be some line that the city draws and say, okay, you know what, even though this is a plot of land that's available, no more development can go in this particular neighborhood. What do you as council people say to something to that regard, to that level? Because our neighborhood is just completely saturated, yet they're talking about building more homes over on Baseline.
Again, Amherst closure, we might have to open that up. There's.
Bowden.
Bowden, I'm sorry, Bowden. That's what we're looking at, is opening that up, because that was a bone of contention as far as why is it closed? The traffic's already there, it's stopping people from going from Williams and all the way through. You know, we have the problem of speeding all the way through Foothill Terrace and all the way across, even across the street. They're gonna have to really review it. Once those homes, when we see the traffic that's going on, we're gonna have to review it. And we're gonna have to do some kind of mitigation in there, for sure. There's no question. We can't do it now until they actually build them. This is a slow process there, but yes.
Let me,
I'm not sure there's a subject.
let me, respond first.
I'm gonna reiterate much of what Tim also said. See, I got to say it once, that was cool. I don't know why I was leading, but never mind. The traffic studies in the past did take account only what was going on there, which is why I was saying we're going to do a traffic study going forward to mitigate the challenges that we face at that time. Because it's hard to project exactly what's gonna happen. But we want to take care of making sure that the traffic is addressed appropriately. For a long time, we have had challenges on our streets. First Street, Second Street, pretty much every street along Third Street even. I was not yelling, but I was waving my hands at this guy, turns off a White Avenue, starts to hit it, and I'm just going, slow down. And I think he saw me because all of a sudden he slowed down. So it takes a lot of us and all of us, because we don't have enough police officers to man every street and keep traffic low. But we need to find some more advanced solutions. I agree, absolutely.
Yes, sir, do you have a?
No.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I have a follow-up on that. Given that housing is so precious in Southern California, and we are in the middle of a housing bubble, I have to question the argument of the developer of the Amherst development that if he could not put in 42 single-family homes there, he wouldn't make a sufficient profit. I can't believe that's not going to happen. I now understand that Lewis Homes is the developer. I would like to know who is currently developing in Amherst and what is the status of the 42 home development. There was a lot of contention about that, and the then developer would not budge off of 42 houses, even though he was given proposals for a lower number of houses as a mediation. Do you have any update on that?
I don't have any update, no, I'm not on that. I mean, again, that's really in the hands of our planning department and development, and as long as it's the code, as it's been described, that's really the parameters that they get to work within, whether or not it's the same developer or handed over. As a council, we're trying to look further out and try to figure out what we need, where we need to be in 5 and 10 years, and leave the day-to-day work to our staff. Because 5 people are not going to be able to manage everything that's going on in Laverne, which is why we have department heads in public works, we have department heads in planning, we have a whole design review committee for planning, we have a police chief, a fire chief, we have a lot of people that run our city, and the 5 of us really need to focus on where we're going to find revenue streams, where we're going to secure funding, because that was really the mantra that we came in with. Right after I came on board, we had a sustainability offsite to try to figure out how do we turn this around to make sure that we can afford our path going forward. And that's really where we're focusing.
A lot of times contractors come in and they buy projects. But the project is what it's designed for, has to stay that way, just like
I see.
Mr. Davis said. So That's possible. I know there was one on Baseline, we just approved, I think it was it 8 or 10 homes on Baseline, that's sold. And it's now under another developer, but they still have the same criteria as far as what they have to build. So, like you say, like you said, our departments communicate, but that thing happens all the time, we just don't see it unless there's a change, then it has to go through planning, it has to come to us, they can't do anything if there's any change, so it's our departments handle all that.
Any audience questions? Okay, then I'll take this one and kind of ties in. Regarding finances. After the information about how the city still uses handwritten time cards was discussed by the new fire chief in a recent council meeting, how do you plan on addressing this type of issue? What's the reason why nothing has been done to remedy this situation in the past? Why wasn't money from Measure LV used to help offset the expense of this costly upgrade? And there's 2 follow-ups to that, so I'll wait until there's.
We've been doing our systems for a long time the same way, but like anything else, it takes time and money to change, and it takes a time frame. Our new finance director that we have right now, in our capital improvement project, we have money in there to actually overdo the whole system and make it a different system now. But we functioned, for many, many years on this, and our budgets are good, they're well done. Sometimes it's more work probably to our staff, but hopefully the new system that they're going to go to will be push a button and populate so they can get their information quicker. But again, we've already done our website, we redid that. As council, we all listen to our residents and say, hey, our website's antiquated. Yeah, it is, and so we're revamping that. Communication out for our residents, information from our staff to our residents. It's so important. Transparency, open governance. So it is in our CIP. It is going to take time to change it, and then also you have to migrate that system over. It's going to take a year or 2, maybe longer, to migrate from one to the other. We've been doing it for a long time. It's worked. Probably not as good as it should be, but it's worked well. And so now we're going to change it just like anything else. Like getting a brand new computer. How fun is that? How about going to get a new iPhone? How fun is that? You have to have your 29-year-old load everything for you because you don't know what the heck you're doing. So that's where we're at. So in a nutshell.
It's nice to be out chatting with you all in this, and I would invite Laverne Citizens Coalition, LV3C, I'll just state that way, to have more opportunities to have conversations with council. I think that's brilliant, because oftentimes at council meetings, people want to have a conversation, and council meetings aren't designed for that. Council meetings are designed to conduct business and make decisions and keep moving. But Laverne's a very frugal town. We've been frugal as long as I've known it. It's a mantra that my grandfather, my mom's dad used to say, as well as my dad's dad. He said, well, my dad's dad was a minister, so it didn't really rhyme with him as much. But my mom's dad would say, I may have assets, I may be dirt rich, but I'm cash poor. So we have more time than money, and we're going to spend the time to do the job that we need to do because we don't have the money, nor do we want to spend the money to do it. At the same point in time, we do listen to our staff, we listen to residents, we listen to a lot of people, experts and whatnot, to make sure that the decisions we're making are prudent, they're helpful, they're moving us in the right direction, but aren't necessarily extravagant. So it was nice to hear Chief Nick say, I want to change this. So I'm in support of that. I'm in support of our management coming up with ideas and then it's presenting them to us, and we figure out a way to finance them. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way it's working now. In some cases, it does bring arcane systems into the modern world, and I get it. And Tim's actually absolutely right. Working in Southern California Edison a year and a half ago now, we converted to a brand new billing system. Some of you may have not have seen any change. Others may have wondered what the heck happened to Southern California Edison. And some of you may not have received a bill for a very long period of time. So, just saying, changes also have risks, so we need to be prudent on how we make those changes. But we're open to change. We want to keep Laverne moving forward, but we do it in a very frugal manner.
As a follow-up to that, and I'll make a personal comment, if somebody was looking at this 5 years ago, why the hell hasn't anything been done?
Is that the question?
Businesses, no, it's my comment,
Oh.
my personal comment, because businesses don't run like that. They go out.
Mine does.
They go out of business.
Mine works like that.
Here's the utility, that's why.
Okay.
That's, it's another discussion. It's not like a private business.
Big businesses work slowly, small businesses can move quickly. Yeah.
Successful businesses move quickly too.
Oh, so do unsuccessful businesses.
Well,
Okay,
You know,
like I said, it was just my personal, nope, just my personal.
I thought you said ask the questions rather than say.
Okay, go ahead, go
Which
ahead.
is why I thought that was a question.
Go ahead.
you know, there's a lot of things in the city that we could change. The issue is that we've been dealt with many, many issues. We have the fire department, we've had COVID, we've had a lot of these issues, and some of those things we just can't approach at the time because, first of all, when COVID hit, we had to shut everything down and start it back up in days. Our employees never seemed to be, and not only that, as council, we've been dealing with budgets, we've been dealing with fire departments, we've been dealing with, our budgets, we've been dealing with how our financing, we've been dealing with the ARPA funds and how we're going to survive, Measure LV, dealing with our residents and their businesses. So, things don't happen overnight. There's one thing I've learned as being on council is you have to have a bit of patience, and you have to work with staff and figure out what the long-term goal is. And like I say, don't waste any money. And that happens every once in a while. Things happen that you have, it's just, Donna, Robin, that you have to do that that it's just, it seems like a waste, but you have to do it. So I think the end result is the fact that we continue on, let our staff, do their job, let them push the city forward, make sure we have a great police and fire department, make sure our public work is funded, make sure our employees are in a good working environment, they're paid fairly, decent benefits. They want to stay here because, how many communities you can go up to a water department and just go give them your bill, go say hi, go over to the public community development department and say hi, talk to people, go into community services and say hi. How many communities can you do that? Yes, you pay for it, but the service you get, our community center, what we have there, our programs are starting back up again. These are a lot of things we do, and sometimes you can't just bite off $2 or $3 million to make a system work and change. I'm expired. Thank you.
I think I already answered it. So,
Audience question. Okay, then I'll just continue these. District voting. There's a whole bunch of them in here about that, so I'll try to keep it to a minimum. How would you answer the following question? Please provide a short explanation. Would you, A, keep the existing 5 districts with a rotating mayor, change to 4 districts with an at-large mayor, or keep the system prior to the recent vote, the existing voting system until a decision is made by the city of Santa Monica, lawsuit against district voting, and if it is upheld, would you remove district voting and change the entire voting process back to at large? That's quite a mouthful.
Short answer.
Survey said that.
have Tim go first. He can give you a short answer.
Okay, let me.
You're gonna add to that?
You gave us a whole night, so we didn't even get those questions we were at the forum.
That's because I was in Florida.
So, yes or no? How about this?
I can reduce.
Wait.
it.
How about a yes or no? Would you vote to keep the existing 5? Would you vote to change it to 4 with an at-large? Or would you vote to go back to the old system? You can do a yes or no on that.
Before you answer that, my understanding is you can't do anything for 10 years.
People are asking what these,
Right, so.
I know, but you can do anything for 10 years, even if they support it or don't.
they're asking what the
Well,
candidates,
I think it's more of an opinion.
yes.
If we like it or not.
People are asking.
Okay, you
wait a
want to
minute.
say you like it or not.
Didn't they already vote?
Sorry.
They're asking our opinion.
Okay.
They're asking, they want to know what the candidates think. This is identifying how the candidates think. So I think it's a fair question
Oh, I do too.
for a yes or no.
Do I like the 5 district voting with a rotation mayor? No.
Say that again.
Do I like a 5 district with a rotation mayor? No. Do I think San Dimas got it right? 4 district with an at-large mayor? Yes, that's what I think we should be. We had many meetings, and I think the residents spoke out and said we want a 4 district with an elected mayor. That's what I supported. Obviously, my council didn't feel that way, and we'll move forward. And as far as changing it, there are laws and regulations that change it. But as I always believe that a resolution can be made and a resolution can be undone, as it has been done before. But you have to follow the law. Whatever the law is, that's what you have to follow. But no, I think that an elected mayor, not just because I'm mayor, just because of the fact I think that for someone to oversee the entire city with the guys at the council underneath them in management, it's very good. You have a person that you can look at. I always said too, you're elected, you're higher elected officials. You gain confidence with them. You gain federal dollars, state dollars. You have a face with your higher electeds. And I think it's extremely important. It's proven to be that way. We got $4 million for our bridge. That's because of our relationship with Grace Napolitano. I think that's wonderful. Our assembly member, they're looking at the continuation of the gold line into Claremont and to Montclair, which is extremely important to finish that. But yes, thank you.
Yes, no.
Well, I'm not gonna give a yes or no answer either.
Come on.
So if you remember, a year ago, or a little over a year, Mr. Bowman actually kicked the can to start the rolling process and brought it up. And at first, I was very hesitant and reticent to say, I don't want to break up the city at all into any districts. But as I did the research, I realized that we had no defense. So we needed to break it up into districts, or somebody could push us into districts, as I was describing in my opening. And I decided that for fair representation for our city, we needed to have 5 districts so that each district would have 1 voice on council. With 4 districts and an at-large mayor, 1 district, wherever that mayor lives, that mayor then doubles the number of votes in that district. So if it happened to be down in the area where I live, if the mayor was at large there and I was on council, then that southern eastern portion of Laverne would have 2 votes on council, and each of the other districts would only have 1. Yes, the council's working on the entire benefit and on behalf of the entire city. However, voting does matter, and representation matters even more, because that's why we vote. And to make sure that every resident feels equal franchise in our city, it's important to have each resident know that they've got a representative on government, not, in some cases, 1 when others have 2. So that's the reason I chose 5. And I think it's fair, and I think it's representative. If indeed Santa Monica changes the world for California so the California Voter Rights Act is changed and modified, we as a council can look at it, talk to the residents, and see what the temperature looks like at that time to see if the residents are interested in changing. For this change, because the California Voter Rights Act, we couldn't put it on a ballot measure because that would subject us to a potential lawsuit. We needed to do it as an action of council, and that's why we chose 5. Now, one of the other things the mayor said was, and this is another primary reason why I wanted 5 council members with the rotating mayor, as Tim had supported up until about 2013 or 2014. I see it, but I need to finish this conversation. Just like in council, I need a few more minutes, Mr. Bowen. I need a few more minutes to complete my thoughts.
So how long would you like?
I don't know. You don't often say I'll need 3 extra. You just say I'm going until I'm done, and then we say okay. So I'm just going to complete the thought. So thank you. As the mayor had said, 1 mayor with 4 council underneath them, and then everybody else under. That's not our formation as a local government. We have 5 equal partners that work together, that need to collaborate and drive consensus and collaboration. That is so important, and that is really what has happened recently is our mayor thinks that he's above us. Because in council meetings, he would bring up an issue and he'd say, I want you to support this, and we'd say, why? And he'd say, because I'm the mayor. The other piece the mayor said was that 1 person has special relationships with higher ups. That's a bunch of hogwash also, because I talked to Grace Napolitano about the bridge, about funding, about housing, about water. I talked to Senator Anthony Portantino about public banking and access to banking funds for people who are not being banked right now. I talked to Chris Bolden about the issues that we face in this area. So it's not just the mayor that gets to talk to these people, it's each and every council member. We're not gonna edit this. This is not gonna be edited. I'm done now, I just had to finish.
Would you please sit down? Since my name was brought up, he's brought this up 3 or 4 times, and I happen to have the email. Since last night I requested the city put district voting on the October 19th agenda, again, requesting an item so we could have a discussion. Here's an answer I received from Mr. Davis. I acknowledge your email. I don't believe it is in the best interest of the city to create districts for city council. I believe that districts divide cities. I believe our city needs to continue to work to coming together, working together, and engaging each other. I believe breaking our city into districts will be divisive, as council members will be working for their constituents in their district and not necessarily the whole city. I understand our city is currently divided, but I believe we can work through these divisive issues without further dividing the city. And that was October of 20. Obviously, he's in the
More than 3 months.
Can I follow that up with an audience question then? As an audience question, you are reading a private email, which I don't think is correct unless Mr. Muir has asked you to read it. The other thing is, Mr. Muir should be able to respond to that. I would hope in 2019 that's
He can, he will.
Mr. Hepburn felt that way in 2019. But both of them found that there needs to be a difference. Both of them found that there had to be a difference. Whether we went 4-1 as a mayor or 5, both of them found that the district was a necessary element. Is that not correct?
Let me address, no. I can stand up for myself. Let me address the first question. It's an email, but all public emails, all emails from the city to and from are public records. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so they're public records.
Okay, but I didn't ask to see it. That's, I mean, you're sharing something, whatever. Go ahead.
want to hear
I'm just saying, it's a public record.
Okay.
He brought my name up. All I'm doing is responding, telling you what his answer was.
But you're a moderator,
Right.
you're not supposed to get
What's your
personal.
point? I'm the chairman of the committee. You don't.
Okay, then you should get out here and have a moderator.
So, just want to address that. Joe?
Follow-up questions? So, given that Mr. Mayor, it threatens your position as mayor, and Mr. Davis, it threatens your candidacy based on the lack of community engagement, what would you do different forward to ensure that the temperature check was more appropriate given the outcome, and that most candidates have used the district voting issue as their first point to address?
Answer that.
I want to kind of go back on what Muir said. I mean, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I think I've done a great job as mayor. But for 29 years, John Williams' staff was the mayor of this community, and another 12 was Don Kendrick. And so all of a sudden, we go away from that to a 5 district with non-elected mayor, seems a little silly. When it was put in 1972, the voters put the right in to vote for a mayor. And I think that we kind of passed by that. Whether I'm mayor or not, I'll serve this community in every aspect of it, whether it be north, south, east, and west. They all get my attention. And as a mayor, I served the community, made sure that they kept up, make sure we kept open. As far as the council, we were all informed of what was going on. My statement was the fact that I was elected. It was a tough election, as you all know. It wasn't easy. And I think that we've done a very good job having an elected mayor. You can go to any council member and ask any question. But as a figurehead, it's nice to have someone that goes to all these functions, that does have associations. And we all have associations with our electeds, our higher electeds. But I think that the community was disserviced when we were 5 districts to took that election process away from that. Never take elections away from people. Never take their voting rights away. And as far as the Santa Monica decision, if that changes and it goes in favor of not having districts, absolutely. We need to revisit that and check it out again and see what's going on. Do it legally, make sure we don't get sued, which we don't like.
Amen.
In answer, Joe, can you repeat that again?
What would you do differently to ensure that everybody was informed?
I think I've done it already, as far as mayor, as far as a council member. I think that's one of the things that you have these different councils or different districts. Doesn't matter what district you're in, you serve this community. 5 district, you serve every single aspect of this community. If someone has an issue, you address it. You take care of it. You get it up to higher management, or you can discuss it if you're on a committee, 2 people, you can discuss it and figure it out with management. Whatever department it is. Generally, when I get a question or somebody has an issue, I push it off right to the department that needs to take care of it. Guess what? It gets handled, because we're a full service city, we handle it, we love our residents, and the employees take care of us.
I would like an answer from Muir,
Right.
because it was the Muir too. What would you do different?
In this day and age where so much information is floating around, I actually think we had good engagement. It wasn't all at City Hall. I was meeting people at parks, at their homes, talking about districting. I have not used districting as my number 1 issue. I've used sustainability and making sure that we're looking for financially sustainable, active transportation sustainable, keeping our public services local, sustainable, to make sure that we can have creative solutions for providing the services that Laverne residents want to receive and that our services can provide. I disagree with my council when they keep talking about your vote is the most important thing. It's not the most important thing, although voters' rights is very important. But voting is all about gaining representation at the various levels, at the local level, at the county level, at the state level, at the national level. It's representation that's the most important thing, and it's not God-given, as some people say, it's constitutionally given. And we need to pay respect to that Constitution and not run over it like some people do in a crazy fashion. But if Santa Monica prevails, then I want to have a conversation with everybody. I agree with what Mr. Bowen said. My response was, I think it's going to be divisive. Our city was divided, but once I realized we couldn't stave off this thing and just say, no, not Laverne, we're going to stay at large. Once I realized that that was not an alternative, because somebody could sue us into it, it made sense to move forward into that divisive territory. And to make it the least divisive, I wanted to make sure that every resident had a representative on council, not giving one district 2 representatives on council, because that would only exacerbate the divisiveness. Because this decision was not made for this year, or 2 years from now, or 4 years from now. It was made for 50 years from now. And 50 years ago, in 1972, the reason that the measure was brought up in the first place was there were people out there that were concerned that some section of Laverne had too much of a coalition of 3 people working on council for a small group's benefit, and they wanted to divide that up and make at least one of the 5 council members more accountable to the residents. And that's why they chose to have a mayor run every 2 years, not every 4 years, because they wanted to have more of a mix-up. How did that work? Not so well, as Kim just said, because Blickenstaff was the mayor for 29 years. Don was the mayor for a long time. So the effort in 1972 to start mixing it up, because Mike Morales was the first elected mayor in 1974, did a fabulous job. The council at that time was doing a fabulous job, but some residents were concerned about a little bit too much elbow-to-elbow kind of stuff that they thought might be happening. Was it? I doubt it. Laverne's done a great job from a local government perspective. Can we get better? Absolutely. And we're looking at trying to, and the reason I'm running is to try to make sure that we gain that sustainability and stability moving forward. Not this year, not next year, but 5 and 10 and 20 years from now.
Thank you both.
I got one addition, if you don't mind, if we may have 1 minute.
Sure. 1 minute.
1 minute. I'm just going to say something. That I was elected mayor, not maybe happily by a number of people in the community, because that wasn't Don Kendrick. But I did win handily. And I had a very good campaign. It was a very clean campaign. I'm very proud of that. I had wonderful people running my campaign. But it's just funny how we go to a 5-district voting system, and that vote's taken away. And then you can just rotate a mayor. Mr. Davis, you should run a campaign for mayor sometime. Not the easiest thing in the world. You have to prove yourself to your community. And then when you are mayor, you have to prove yourself again and again and again. Those mayors that served, they did a great job. But our community has changed, and it was time for some changes. Communities change, and they need change. We must change with the times. And quite frankly, I think I've done a great job. But again, when you go to 5-district voting, you took away that. And it's not the easiest thing in the world. I'd like to see you run a mayoral campaign sometime. Not easy. And I'm proud of what I've done.
Thank you.
Question from the
On
floor.
another subject. Yes, ma'am.
A question from the floor along the same lines as the president of the Historical Society. My digging into the history of Laverne reveals that there has been a history of segregated schooling in Laverne. And I don't know how much about segregated housing, but I think we need to keep in mind that the requirement that we are required to meet with going to district-based voting was a direct outcome of the California Voting Rights Act, which was to give representation to underrepresented groups who increasingly diversify the city of Laverne. So my question to you, having made that preamble to both of you, is that what will all the council members do to represent all the people in Laverne, but most especially those people who are not attendees at city council, who are maybe more reluctant voters, who may be shy and not come out to public meetings? How can we, all of the city council members, represent those citizens of Laverne?
Aaron?
That's an excellent question, and so there are several avenues, at least that council is taking, and there are some avenues that I'm personally taking, and there are avenues that are being supported by the city. One of the avenues being supported by the city is the Cultural Awareness and Social Inclusion Committee, which is all about trying to help the city become more friendly and more aware and including people of all ilk. I mean, this is the second day of June, which is Gay Pride Month, which I celebrate with my friends who are LGBTQ and their allies. It's an important time to recognize people who have been around for a long time, but have been forced to be undercover or not being completely out. I am thrilled that people that are in my lineage and or neighbors of mine helped to integrate the schools in Laverne in the late 40s, early 50s. My church is also dealing with and trying to establish awareness for our community about racism and trying to help dismantle racism. So at a church level, we're doing it. And at the council, I know there's going to be some measures brought by CASI, Cultural Awareness and Social Inclusion Committee, to council to make Laverne, have Laverne work at being a more friendly community. So we're trying to do things in all levels, and integration and inclusion is very important to me. My father, last election, I was getting a lot of friends who are Hispanic supporting me simply because my dad had recruited them from Pomona and Chino to come to Laverne College back when he was a professor there, because he wanted to make sure that it was all of our neighbors and all of our community that were engaged and moving forward together.
Yep.
I don't know, the last 6 months, we've done proclamations almost every single month, as you know, for all of our community members, no matter what walk of life you're from, no matter what race or creed you're on. So I think we're a very fair community. We accept everyone here. And as Muir, so part of the Church of the Brethren, so was I for many years with the children. But I think we also, as a community, we look at the disadvantaged people that don't have certain funds. Our ARPA funds, we put $500,000 for people to upgrade their homes, $10,000, $6,000 for mobile home communities, $10,000 for residences. That it was the community development block grant money that we decided to put ARPA funds in. So something we've been working on for a number of years, and it's finally coming to fruition. So hopefully we'll get that going in the next couple weeks. And then we've also our business assistance grants, no matter what the business is, $10,000. We have $1 million for business assistance grants. We already have over $500,000 that are approved grants for businesses. So our community and our schools, we work very closely with our schools. We have some of the best schools around in the nation, actually. And I think we work well with that. I think they're very concerned about integration, making sure that, you know, we're a very blended community. I think we do a really good job at it. And I think as council, we're all very aware of our community and how much we basically love our children and love our people in the community, and we show that. So.
Thank you for those really detailed answers.
Anna?
I want to go back to the mayor thing because I didn't know we were going to go off to something else. Do we have to have a mayor? Is that a law? Why?
If that's
Why
your
have a
question.
rotating mayor? Why? If everybody is so upset about there's going to be a mayor in a different district and they may, you know, now we're going to have 2 people in the district. We've always had mayors in different parts of the city. We never thought, well, Don Kendrick lives down there, so he's going to represent those people. Or the other mayor, I can't even say his name, lives in the Denver. We never had a problem thinking that our mayor was going to represent only a certain amount of people. The mayor represents
Our
our city.
city council is all large too.
That's right. That's right.
So that's why.
So why have a mayor? Let's just not have a mayor. Why rotate?
Well, somebody has to run the meetings and sign the contracts. Honestly, that's what it is.
That's true.
If you want an answer, Anna, sit down and I'll stand up and answer your question.
Okay, I don't think we should have a mayor. It's too much of a problem, you know? Okay, have somebody, can we hire somebody to sit down and sign the papers? You don't have to call them mayor. She'll volunteer. Can they answer? You don't have to. Can they answer? Yeah.
So we could title the person anything we wanted, but some person does run the meetings, and some person does support that person who runs the meetings if they're absent. And we, prior to 1972, for the 60 so years, that title was called the mayor, and it rotated around the council, and the mayor pro tem position rotated around the council, and that's the proposition to move back to, is we just have the title, the mayor title rolls around, and that person runs the meeting and signs resolution and signs all the documents that the head person of council needs to sign. In some municipalities, they do use different titles. So we could get rid of that title, but I wouldn't propose that we do that, simply because the title of mayor and mayor pro tem are reasonable titles to put on to 2 people, that one runs the meeting and the other one is there for a backup. But the more important thing, and I get it, change is hard, so don't get me wrong. I mean, campaigning in a district which was a much different experience than campaigning in a at-large realm, and campaigning against one person, or in some cases 2 people, I would imagine was quite a bit different than campaigning against 7 or 8, which was the pool of council back when we were at large.
So you're saying that
So all
you
I'm
just want to have
saying,
somebody sign papers? That's the mayor.
yeah,
Don't you think that somebody should have more experience about doing the kind of job of a mayor?
every council member is equal.
Ceremonial. Then don't
Let's have
call me-
Tim, Anna, let's have Tim respond, please.
Honestly, Anna, I mean, I'm sure you could, but you have to have some type of a program and some type of step system as far as how you have management. And unfortunately, or fortunately, you have to have someone that has the signing capacity, and also just part of the way our system works, as far as mayor pro tem and 3 council members. Because you do, like you say, you have to run meetings, you have to, keep organization, you have to have someone that's gonna be at a lot of functions all the time, represent the city, represent, all of the members of the city, and so there's quite a, as far as legally wise, I don't know, I guess you should probably change it if you wanted to, but.
Well, if you're gonna, if people are gonna say, look, the mayor's nothing. He has no more power than anybody else.
Well, I think in answer to your question, that's the way we do it. All cities have it. You have to have a mayor, you have a mayor pro tem. It's how they function, it's how the resolutions go, it's how the signatures go. You have someone that you go to for issues, and you have a lead of the council.
So the mayor does have
Yes,
a job.
yes.
Okay.
So I'm calling you just a minute, but let me throw this out. I would assume it's part of the municipal code or the charter of the city or something.
The mayor is authorized to sign legal documents.
And so I would assume there is a document.
Yes.
It's terrible to assume. Yes, sir.
I was upset just like everybody else when all this was happening. And why are they doing this? And the more I thought about it, bringing up the districts and thinking, oh, we're going to balkanize the city. But having a rotating mayor, there's a role effect. And you're putting, when you put someone into a role, then they have to think in terms of that role. And that shapes their behavior and how they're thinking. And so by having, I like what Tim said, is that all the council members need to think about the city as a whole, all the time. But by rotating the role through, you're forcing the individuals. If you want an individual to change and broaden their thinking, I come from more of a sociological orientation, but the role has a lot of power in shaping the way individuals think about the city. So I would argue that you would find that as the mayorship moved, through the council, that those individuals on the council would become more sensitive to the city as a whole. And that is an important thing to do, particularly when you have a district-based voting. So for that reason, I think that's why you want to do it.
Thank you, Chief Yvonne. Yvonne?
I don't have a question.
Name?
Oh, sorry. My name is Yvonne Gallegos. Because I carry around stats on my phone, I just wanted to go back to Sherry's question, right? And just state for the record that 8.4% of people who live in Laverne are living in poverty. Also, the other important statistic that I think is relevant here is that 22.8% speak a language other than English at home. So when I think Sherry asked her question, and those are the people that we really need to reach out to. So you talked about, Mr. Hepburn, you talked about the low voter turnout, right? I think if we dived into the low voter turnout, I bet that we would see that there are areas that have much lower voter turnout because of some of these statistics. So I didn't have a question, I just wanted to throw that out, so thank you.
Anita?
In response to Muir's statement about he thought the district was a positive thing because it would provide more representation for the residents, but I don't think the residents, not everyone knows that with a rotating mayor, the representative for a particular district does not have to serve as mayor if they chose not to do it. They can pass that. So how does that provide representation for that district if they so choose to pass on that position?
So every 4 years, there's going to be an election for every council member. And I would hope, and I would be engaged in my district for sure, to say that if you don't like the job I'm doing, and if you didn't like the fact, if I happen to be one who passed over and didn't want to be mayor because of whatever time or commitments that required, and I wasn't ready for those, then you would take that into the next election as your understanding of saying, do you like Muir who doesn't want to be mayor, or do you want somebody else who does want to be mayor to be your representative? It's going to be that, it needs to be that personal. I mean, people oftentimes have come up to me and said, yeah, we should add term limits. I say, we have term limits, they're called elections. Every 4 years, that's a term limit, and people need to recognize that that's your choice to find the representative that you want and choose that representative. And that's an important piece of that, because representation is the important piece. It was an 8-page ballot. Granted, the 8th page was blank, but 7 pages worth of voting. Those are all very thoughtful, serious things to take action on or not, because in some cases, people rightly say, I don't understand Superior Court Judge number 5. I don't know these people, I haven't been able to figure out anything, so I don't feel like I want to weigh the balance for either one of those, so I'm going to pass on Superior Court Judge number 5. That's okay too. But recognize that the fact that you only get to vote now for one person in your district every 4 years, that does not diminish your representation. It changes it, absolutely. But voting for 2 or voting for 1 is the act, but it's making sure that we maintain the franchisement for everybody in the community so that those people who lost the vote on the mayor in the past have felt really bad about it. I don't want that to happen. I want everybody to recognize that you're voting for your council member, and if you've got a concern or an issue, please talk to your council member about their behavior, about their supporting of our city. If you've got a concern that you want to raise on council to address as an agenda item, you're absolutely free to go to anybody, but we wanted to make sure that council was understanding what the issue was so that council could talk about it elegantly rather than simply saying, I brought this issue up because this person told me to, but I don't know why, because that wasn't putting a good use to council time where we're trying to do business. Thank you.
Well, you have a choice, and also the council has a choice. If the person's weak and they're not quite ready for it, I mean, if you have a new council member and also they're up for rotation, it's like they could pass and you could come back to them. I mean, it's a vote within the council. So I think that's how you're going to have to look at it. But if a person did not want to be it at all, I think that's a reflection on their leadership, and I think you need to really think about that when it comes to voting, as Muir said. But, I mean, I look at it as a council member, it's an opportunity to actually, as you stated, is to feel the wrath. You're going to feel the wrath that you're going to literally, you know, be that person that, you know, if all council members get questions and answers, but the mayor gets a lot. And all of a sudden it's like, it's your problem as mayor, you need to deal with this. And it's like, that's how you deal with that with your residents and tell them, hey, this is how it's going to work, this is what we're going to do. But Danita, as far as your question was, is that you could pass it by, but I think it would look really a bad reflection. But again, if the person was new and was inexperienced, and give them a rotation, I think it would be, they could do that, and then you could come back to them on the next rotation. But I like the way you put it. I think it's the way to look at it, gain experience. But I will say that it's not the easiest thing going on.
It's coming on 8 o'clock, and I have a question that I wrote, so I'm raising my hand to ask a question. This year's budget, and I looked at the agenda for Monday night, and this year's budget contains 23 no-bid contracts. During Assemblyman Holden's investigation last year, he stated that long-term no-bid contracts violated state guidelines. Yet the city manager suggests no-bid agreements year after year to the same companies, including people like RKA for 15, 20, 30 years, our city attorney for coming up on 30 years. I would like to ask each one of these gentlemen, will you support an outside forensic audit for city finances? Yes, no, and why? Here?
No. The reason why is that we have over the last, or my understanding is longer than I've been on council. I've been on council 5 years now because of the way we changed voting. But for 8 years or so or more, we have received a stellar review from our outside accountant, the people that come in and audit our finances. I have had conversations with him. He goes through and reads the warrants ever since he's been on council. He's not shared with me any information that has caused me to be concerned about the way our finances are running. So I have somebody on council who's reviewing it. I have outside auditors who are reviewing our accounts and say they gave us remarkable responses, if not perfect responses. So I see no reason to create the concern or the angst that an external audit does to an institution, an entity. I mean, big entities like Southern California Edison, we have our own internal auditors so that we don't have an external audit come in and surprise anybody to make sure there's harmony But even those internal audits sometimes cause stress simply because you've got somebody saying, you're doing it wrong, and I'm gonna show you how. So I don't think that auditing for an audit's sake is a healthy thing. It's like telling people they should take radiation and chemotherapy just because. I don't think it's worth it. I think it's too caustic to the body to have a forensic audit just because somebody made a campaign pledge about having one.
Mr. Hepburn?
We have nothing to hide, nothing to gain, so I have no problem with the forensic audit, period. The assembly member offered it to us, we should have taken it. I think, and I do look at the bills, there are some issues, but nothing, it's just more of a, what that bill is for, or what this contract was for, things like that. But as far as our CAFR, he's correct, we have received awards every year, we do a very good job. But again, the pillars are only as good as what's below them, and you might as well check it. If it's free, we have nothing to hide, why not? And then start fresh. We're going to start a new program, we're going to start a new accounting method. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. There's a whole bunch of other questions, and I don't think we're going to have time. People are certainly invited to stay if you guys want to stay and answer some questions. Everybody's certainly invited. I kind of called 8 o'clock. So, given that, we could have some your closing, and then if people want to stay, you'd be amenable to staying and answering?
Sure.
Is that good with everybody?
Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, thanks for putting up with my novice time doing this.
Not a novice.
Here, would you like to?
I think that this was a microcosm of the model that the United States and Laverne provides to the world. This is small d democracy in action. These are the important engagements to have serious conversations. Occasionally a little levity is fine too. And talking about the things that are important to us and being able to share what my vision is and import so that you can decide whether you want to join me with my vision. I want to make sure that Laverne continues to go in its upward path, that we have a replacement for the LV measure, which lasts 10 years. I see a lot of great things for our community. I see the Metro being an opportunity that would cause Laverne to be the true gem that it can be, and that it already is. So please vote for me. Thank you very much.
I'm going to have to mirror some of the comments Muir said. We live in a very, very wonderful community. It's always been great. Muir and I do disagree many times. Not to go to blows or anything, but you know what? We're brothers in this community. And like I told him, at the end of the day, when this election's over, we're still family and friends. And I think that's the most important thing. We've got a great future. I think we're on the precipice of major change in our community as far as good things. We have the Gold Line, L Line coming, G Line, whatever they call it now.
I just call it the Metro.
Metro. That train station. But I think we've done a great job as a council and as a city. Granted, there's always going to be change, but we have wonderful residents that really feed this community. We have wonderful schools. We're all involved, engaged, just like softball. I mean, come on. How many communities like softball, water polo, baseball, boys baseball? It's like, we're a very engaged community. We've all raised our children together. At the end of the day, we don't always agree. Robin and I don't always agree on everything. But at the end of the day, we do the best thing for our community. The most important thing is to listen to our residents. And I think this upcoming election, it's going to change. As usual, I will roll with the changes. We will see how this works out. If it works out great, fine. We're all in good shape and we move on. Again, I do believe that a 4-district and an elected mayor would have been better, but we're on a 5-district and we're going to do rotation, and that's what we're going to do in this community, and that's what we're voting for. So I think the most important thing is people get out and vote. The most important thing, I think we passed that already, is to register to vote. I think we're past that now. But again, I think that I will continue to do a great job for the community. I will continue to be a voice of the resident. I will continue to question our staff and ask the right questions, and making sure that we all ask the right questions to make sure that we're serving our residents like we should be. And making sure that the jobs that they're doing are the jobs that they're supposed to be doing, our vendors and everything else. I'm kind of micromanager and that kind of stuff. I like to be right on top of things as far as what we're doing in the streets, with Edison shutting our power off for longer than they were supposed to. Yeah, and that was a bone of contention. We need to make sure that our
It's my
vendors.
company, what can I say?
I'm sorry. They get an F rating, I'm sorry. It's like the streets over on, on our streets over there, they got an F rating. Edison got an F rating on that because it was supposed to be a 7-hour shutdown. It turned out to be an 18 to 20-hour shutdown. But anyway, at the end of the day, I hope that they all vote for me in District 4. I wish Rich Gill, Estelle Maldonado good luck. I wish Muir Davis and Steve Johnson good luck. I wish Joe Gabaldon and Cash Califagia good luck. And it's not an easy thing to do. I commend all of you for running an election. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but you know what? We live in a great community. If they choose to use someone else, I'll just sit back and be a great resident again. So, but thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you both. So those that would choose to leave, feel free. We appreciate your attendance.
I've got a question. I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm asking this on behalf of my wife, because if I go home and say that I met with the meeting of, a mayor and the city council, and I did not ask this question, I would be in the doghouse. You don't want to be in my wife's doghouse. What happened is, I have friends over on Azusa Avenue in Azusa. They said that ever since the gold line came in, there's been nothing but crime. People sleeping in front of their businesses, and the crime rate has gone up. My wife, we live in the south end of Hepburn, kind of where Mr. Davis lives, and she believes that when the gold line comes in, she watches the news. She sees what's happened on the gold line, Metrolink and all that. People are living in the trains and riding all day long and coming up D Street, and she believes that it's going to decrease our property values and just so much crime. My question for you is, I'm asking this on behalf of my wife, what is the city council's plan on helping the city of Laverne to not have so many problems?
Well, we know for a fact, because of experience from other Pasadena, Azusa, all the areas that have had the train go through, it is a homeless highway sometimes.
Right.
The problem is they're having an issue right now with Metro, and who's going to police that? Between the sheriffs or their own police agencies, which they're working on. We as a community, we already know we're going to have to increase fire. We already know we're going to have to increase the police presence. And hopefully, our governor, if he can get this done, the CARES Act, which is most of the people that are homeless, most are mentally ill or their drug abuse. And that's a major issue. And if Governor Newsom hopefully comes through what's called the CARES Act, if we can get to a point where we can take these people, the mentally ill people, and take them under guardianship and get them into some sustainable situation off the streets, I think that's the most important thing. Because you can throw all the money you want to at this, and that's what they've been doing over the last few years. You can rehouse. The problem is most of those people on our streets right now, even in Laverne, they have more rights than we do. They can stay where they are because they don't want to go. Right, Robert? We can't force them to go. Until we get something as a law that says, if they are not capable of taking care of themselves, we can go ahead and we can remove them off the streets, get them into some mental situation where they can, protection. The same thing with drug and some drug rehab program, and so that's really, the answer to the question is, we're aware, we already know. You look at the news every day, there's always situations going on, we're aware of it, and we're going to address that as we go along. That's why Measure LV, that's why all this construction, that money that we're getting on builder's fees and developer fees are going to pay for the additional service and the additional security.
That's what I wanted to find out. Is the city council aware of what's happening?
Our chief of police, Colleen Flores, our new chief fire department, Chief Nick, is very aware. Our public works director, Sean Idle, they are very aware. And our city manager is very aware.
I think it's a big problem that will come to look.
It's going to be an issue, but we'll address that.
Okay.
But things are going to change. That homeless population thing, new city mayor in the city of Los Angeles, there's going to be some changes here in the next few years, and hopefully a positive end to get these people some help.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So my story on Metro is actually a little different than Tim's. I want to make sure that as a council we focus on the enhanced infrastructure financing district which we've created, which will help to create street sidewalks, walkable pathways to both the station and to the community around it. So people who live in the area have a dynamic station that's vital and vibrant, or visitors that come to the university or Old Town or walk across the bridge to Fairplex, they come to a station that's active and engaged with residential and retail and active people walking around. Because when you have active people walking around, transients aren't as likely to get off the station at that location. If they don't have places to secrete themselves into cubby holes and whatnot, or if you're not the last station tends to get some people just because they can't go any further. But if you're not the last station, which we were able to articulate with Metro to make sure they built it all the way to Pomona, but with the vibrant station of residential, retail, mixed use, then you've got a scenario where fewer transients are going to get off in the first place. Secondly, then, with the additional fees that the mayor was talking about, for police and fire, we'll have the staffing that we need to address the potential increase, slight increase of transients. And beyond that, we have good relationships with Tri-City Mental Health to make sure that we can provide the mental health services that we need. We have Hope for Home in Pomona that we can provide homing services for them, as well as potential opportunities for other housing or other infrastructure to help the housing and help the homeless. Homelessness is not just about transients on the train, but homelessness is larger than that because California needs more homes, and that whole area down there is going to be a place in our neighborhood, mine too, where there are going to be a lot of houses, mixed or medium and high density housing all along First Street and Arrow that are going to be built in a way that people are going to want to be there.
Yeah, see, that's what attracts the people. They're coming from LA. If they go to Pomona, there's nothing in Pomona. They'd have to walk miles to get in the commercial area or an area that would be desirable for them. But in Laverne, they get off the train, right there is all the downtown shopping, the people.
But people who are homeless don't want a lot of people around them because they're threatened by people. They want places, so San Dimas, I think, did the wrong thing in this case. They moved their station further away from their downtown section, out closer to an industrial park. So I actually think, and in all candor, Steve Johnson wanted the station to be at Wheeler. And I thought that would be devastating for Laverne because people would get off there and then go through the irrigation ditches and just start hiding around there. San Dimas is going to have a much worse problem with homelessness than we do because of the place they put their station.
It's not only the homeless, it's the criminals. That's what I'm talking about, the
Close to
criminals.
my house. Can I ask, relate to, okay, because my.
Lily, you have a question?
Yes, relate, okay, because I live very close to Gold Line, so actually this question is for Ms. Mayor too. So, Mr. Mayor, as Michael and Austin's teacher and family friends, I'm so appreciate the way you care about this, especially young men yesterday, okay, 2 days ago. How could our city prevent this kind of under $950 building will not happen weekly, actually it's daily in Laverne, especially after the Gold Line station opened. It's very close to my house. $950 not even be a case. They call police officers, but only $600, but under $950. They just ask them, you guys we go to social media. That's why we come out to tell them to go social media. Because $950 even be a case. Now he locked his new bike in the living room because he's so scared people will follow him again and steal his bike again. Because we check, it's outside, very strong. People will lift up, cross the stair, maybe 2 persons follow him. So that's why he's so nervous. He has his bike in the living room, not outside. Not safe at all. So how to prevent that, right? 950 not even the case of these.
Lily, the point is that with AB 109 and Prop 47 and 57, they basically have given criminals more rights than the residents and the ones that are being criminalized. Until we change that, it has to do with George Gascon too being our attorney. And I think that district attorney, he needs to go. We need to have somebody that's going to convict, and they're going to need to change the laws. First thing you have to change the laws, though. Because misdemeanors, you can have a pocket full of misdemeanors, citations in your pocket and continue to steal. And so, until that changes, which I think, as we know, the pendulum always swings far to the right and it swings far to the left. The pendulum swings the other way. I think they're starting to seriously talk about AB 109, Prop 47 and 57, which is their release, which is the misdemeanor things like that, that's going to change. Our police force is frustrated beyond control because the fact that these people are having tickets in their pocket from multiple situations where they don't even get jailed. So it's a bad situation, but it's going to change. I think it's going to change. And that's what's being done about it.
So appreciate that. Still a problem every day happening. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Just like.